I remember that night in 2010 when Abdul and I decided to play the Doritos Horror Game. We were just two curious 13-year-olds looking for something fun to do on a Friday night, while my parents were out of town. Little did I know, it would turn into a truly terrifying experience, one I would remember for the rest of my life. As soon as we started the game on my old PC, the atmosphere of the room changed. The air felt heavy, and a dreadful feeling overtook us. Abdul, trying to dispel the eerie sensation, nervously admitted he was feeling a little scared too. He laughed and said, "Come on, Brian, it's just a game." Trying to allay my fears, he explained that Doritos had launched the game online in the late 2000s. It became a hit because it heightened the horror experience by using the device and user data. However, it was mysteriously shut down, and no one could figure out why. I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't just a game. We had recently moved into a new house because my dad suffered a financial loss and decided to sell our old home. The new house was quite big but surprisingly cheap, likely because it was next to a cemetery. We weren't a very religious family, and since my parents were Dutch, they had no problem with the eerie view from our window. However, at night, I would sometimes hear strange noises that shouldn't be heard. After that night, I would rather walk through the cemetery than play that horror game again. Curiosity got the better of us. My parents had a rule that I wasn't allowed to use the computer after 9 p.m., but since my dad was away for a business meeting and my mom wouldn't be back overnight, I brought the computer to my room. I called Abdul over, and we began playing. The game started off easy enough. We walked through a dimly lit corridor, illuminated only by the blinking lights of the game screen. But as the clock struck midnight, I felt a cold chill down my spine. It wasn't just the eerie noises coming from the game, or the ghostly lights casting long shadows across the room. It was something else. A deep, unsettling feeling that we weren't alone. A sudden, loud knock on the window startled us. We froze, staring at each other, our hearts pounding. "Maybe it's just a branch," I whispered, though I knew the nearest tree was too far from the window to make such a sound. We cautiously peeked outside, but the foggy graveyard revealed nothing. Trying to shake off the fear, I laughed and returned to the game. After a while, the game took a terrifying turn. The screen started to glitch, and for a moment, it showed the cemetery next to our house instead of the in-game hotel lobby. We stared in confusion, and then, suddenly, the screen returned to normal. "Brian, did you see that?" Abdul asked, his voice trembling. I tried to sound confident. "It's probably just a glitch. Let's keep playing." But the game had changed. Every challenge now felt disturbingly personal. In one task, we had to sing a lullaby to calm a crying child. As we hesitated, the sound of a real baby crying echoed through the house. A chill ran down my spine. We searched the room but found nothing. Then came the most terrifying moment. The game transported us to a hotel, where we were challenged to enter a specific room, room 66, the same number as our house. As we accepted the challenge, the room's temperature dropped, and the air filled with the stench of wet earth and decay. Before we could react, the lights went out, plunging us into darkness. A low, mournful groan echoed from the cemetery outside. "Stop it!" Abdul screamed, panicking in the darkness. I moved toward the computer, my hands shaking. Before I could shut it down, a piercing scream erupted from the speakers, followed by eerie silence. Then, we heard slow, deliberate footsteps coming from the kitchen. Something invisible brushed past me, its touch icy cold. We bolted for the stairs, our footsteps echoing loudly, chased by an unseen force. As we reached the stairs, the air turned frigid, and the door to my room creaked open. A dense, black fog poured out, swirling in the dim light. From the shadows emerged a figure eerily resembling a character from the game. But this was no digital animation. Its glowing red eyes locked onto us. Abdul stumbled back in terror. "Brian, what is this?" he cried. "I don't know, but we can't stop now," I whispered. We dashed for the front door, but an invisible force held it shut. We could hear the figure creeping closer. Suddenly, the game's screen lit up with a warning. "Don't turn your back." Our hearts pounded as we obeyed, moving cautiously towards the door without looking away. The figure mirrored our steps. The stench in the air grew unbearable. Desperate, I grabbed Abdul's hand and whispered, "We need to get out now!" Summoning all our strength, we forced the door open and slammed it shut behind us. A loud banging echoed from the other side, as if something monstrous was trying to break through. We ran to the kitchen, grabbing anything to barricade the door. Just then, my phone rang. Startled, I answered, but all I heard was a chilling whisper before the line went dead. Hours passed as we stood guard, listening to the unsettling sounds beyond the door. Finally, the first rays of morning sunlight filtered through the curtains. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and we cautiously opened the door. The room was empty. The game was still running on the screen, but the horror of the night lingered in our minds. Abdul and I swore never to speak of it. Thankfully, my dad soon got a new contract, and we moved out of that house. Even now, whenever I think of that night, I wonder, was it just a game, or something far more sinister?